welcome everyone to episode 1 of QueerTrek, a Tricorder Transmissions LGBTQ plus community podcast. My name is Marty, Allee, and today I am joined by my new QueerTrek co-host, Heather Barker. Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm so happy. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
Even though like this idea came to me not too long ago, like I feel like we've been waiting for this for a very long time. So yeah, like my aura is rainbows right now.
My shirt is rainbow.
Yes.
All right. So for those who are new to the podcast, which tonight is everybody, QueerTrek is an LGBTQ community-empowered Star Trek podcast where the topics come from you and your suggestions. Each show, our host will be joined by guests from the LGBTQ plus community who will share their stories while discussing the subjects they choose within the scope of Star Trek's 52-year history. Topics range from personal stories, episode examinations, characters, and themes in Star Trek, all from a queer perspective.
Yay. I just want to take a minute too to make sure that everyone knows that this podcast is all inclusive. So all colors of the rainbow, all sides of the spectrum, everyone is welcome here. However you identify, this is your home. So over time, this podcast will feature all kinds of people, all kinds of stories, and whether it's personal stories or things like episode examinations, we have a few things waiting in, I say dry dock. I don't think that's the right term. Waiting in our queue. But we're going to have a wide variety of guests and subjects, and hopefully longevity with this podcast. Like I said, it's been a long time coming. So if you would like to submit a topic idea, or if you would like to be a guest on QueerTrek, you can reach us by email at QueerTrek@thetricordertransmissions.com. And then on Twitter, we are at QueerTrekPod. Or you can use a submission form at QueerTrek.thetricordertransmissions.com. Just contact us that way. We will get back to you super fast. But remember, this is your podcast. We're here to empower you, your voices. We want to help tell your stories, and we need you to make this happen. One other thing that we have is a Patreon account. Marty, do you want to tell people about Patreon?
Sure. Well, if you're a fan of QueerTrek, which we hope you will be, or any of the other shows on the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, you can show your support by donating to our Patreon fund. You can do so by visiting patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. For as little as $1 a month, you will gain access to early release episodes, unedited shows. We even host monthly patron chats, which our next one I think is coming up at the end of September.
Yes.
I don't remember the exact date.
September 22nd, I believe.
September 22nd will be our next Patreon chat.
Yeah.
So if any of that sounds of interest to you, visit patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions.
The really cool thing is that our patrons will get to listen to QueerTrek before anyone else.
They will. They'll be the very first to hear it.
And you get a really cool pin when you sign up, a little button that we designed, and it's super cool. And we might have some more special pins coming down the road. I think I even have a pin for this podcast in mind.
Yeah.
But so we wanted to take just a quick minute and tell you a little bit about the podcast and how it came to fruition. If anyone follows our shows here at the Tricorder Transmissions, you know that we spend we wish we spent a lot of time at STLV, but every year we go to the official Star Trek Las Vegas convention, and it's basically a giant family reunion. This past year was my 10th consecutive year, and over time I have watched the queer community become more visible and grow. Back in 2016, after the Pulse nightclub shootings, I felt inspired to make sure that we had some kind of an event where we just got out there and said, sorry, we're here and we're queer, right? Like, I wanted to make sure that all of the attendees recognize that we are there, we are present, And I wanted to do something to help our group to have a show of solidarity, basically. So we did just a simple like photo op, a little march through the halls together. And since then, I've been really focused on trying to bring our community together at STLV. This year, people who watch Star Trek may or may not know there is a new Star Trek series on CBS All Access called Star Trek Discovery. And for the first time, we have a wonderful gay couple played by two gay actors and activists, Wilson Cruz and Anthony Rapp. I would like to think that they are part of the reason why this year there were even more queer people and especially gay couples, which, I mean, it makes sense that a gay couple on Star Trek would inspire more gay people, more gay couples to come to the Star Trek convention. And I talked to some people and I know that that was their inspiration. So it's really important to me that we have that presence. And after I got back, I was just inspired. And I said, we need to have a voice. And so QueerTrek was born, and I reached out, and wonderful Marty agreed to be my co-host. And so that's why we are here today. QueerTrek will be a monthly podcast for now. We're both pretty busy people.
Yes,
So
other shows we need to do as well. So
yeah, I help run the Tricorder transmissions, and I do another show called Disco Trek. Marty is the host of Reading Trek, and then we both help out with Weekly Trek.
Yeah.
And we have lives outside of that. So the goal is to have monthly episodes. And like I said, we want you to reach out and contact us. But we do have a queue right now. And so that's the plan. It may or may change. I'm not sure. We'd like to do more, but it just will depend on time and what happens. But speaking of STLV, I wanted to introduce our guest tonight, our dear friend, Eric Profancik. The reason that we wanted to have you here, and we're so happy that you joined us and that you are here to talk about this subject, is because as much as this is our coming out episode of QueerTrek, STLV seems to have inspired you to come out publicly. And so we wanted you to tell us your story, and we will help you tell this story, but it's a very, very important one. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how STLV helped inspire this decision in your life?
Right, I will do that. So as you have said, basically it is just about 2 weeks after STLV 18, maybe 3 weeks? No, 4 weeks.
Time flies.
Time flies. Well, it's been 4 weeks since the convention-ish, and it's been 2 weeks since I've come out to the world. And the reason for that was because of STLV, and as you said, the strong queer presence in Vegas. My life, I have pretty much hidden my sexuality from friends, family, coworkers, everyone. I just was never comfortable or secure enough to tell people who I really was, except in Vegas. I've only gone to STLV for 3 years now. Started with the big 5-0, and didn't really get the queer vibe at that convention because I was one of those stupid people that did the VIP package and kind of hid in that little room and spent way too much money. So I didn't mingle and really get what STLV really comes to be for all of us, and friends and family and community. So last year, I was out and about like a normal person and making friends, meeting new people from around the world. And I found myself just very naturally just being myself and being out. Just, didn't hide it, didn't try, just was who I was. And I think that's a very strong reason why for, that the 12 months until STLV 2018, I just could not wait to get back to Vegas. Because maybe deep down inside, I realized that I was, missing something, that freedom. And so we get to this year's convention, and just so many, queer people around, and I found myself kind of, as I'm a gay male, kind of trying to connect with other gay men in a just a friendship sort of way. And it's because of being able to associate or befriend and talk with guys, like William and Eric and Cody and Scott's and Laz. It just, the strength of these guys just being out, being themselves, being so comfortable, just kind of stuck with me. Going to the Night of Diversity party, that's kind of the first time I ever did anything like that. In my real life, I never go to gay bars. I really, just really kept everything so hidden and so in the closet. But what was really the icing on the cake for me in Vegas, and as some of you may know, I had a wonderful experience, and it's just a really good photo op with Wilson Cruz. Had a chance to bump into him at the Night of Diversity, but then at the photo op, we were able to exchange words. But then Creation and CBS had all the actors sneak out during the official cosplay photo, and there was 4 of us that were in the medical whites, and Wilson didn't see us, and he was off to stage left. And after a couple of pictures, I just screamed, "Hey, Wilson, come join your medical buddies." And he went, "Oh, I didn't see you." And he came over and he just came and just wedged himself right next to me and just made my day. And the 4 of us were on our, bent knee. And so he got on bent knee, and just for whatever reason, he just put his hand on my knee for the rest of that photo shoot. And I was just in 7th heaven. And someone fortunately got a really good picture of that. And it became my wallpaper on my phone, as well as me posting it all over Facebook. So after the convention, looking at this picture every time I open my phone, which is, as you know, every 30 seconds for, a normal person, seeing that picture and just thinking of, all the people I met in Vegas, it just was nagging at me day after day. It's like, I'm just tired of not being myself. I just want to be open. I want to be myself. I just want to be like these guys and these role models that we're now looking up to on Discovery. And so one shaky Friday evening, I called my sister and said, "Hey sis, do you know your brother is gay?" And just kind of went from there. I had a great conversation with her.
Did she know?
How did she say? I think she probably suspected, but really didn't know. But what had happened was, over time, Mom and her had a conversation about me. Because, parents know. You really can't hide it from them, whether or not your parents want to admit to it or not, or accept who you are, but they know. And
mine didn't, but that's a story for another day.
Okay. But 20 years ago, Mom confronted me. And I remember that conversation because she found some of my gay magazines that I was hiding in my bedroom or something. And she said, "Are you gay?" And I just could not admit to it at that point, even though it was obvious, plain as day, and I had this wonderful opportunity. And so she knew, and so she had conversations with, my sister. So that's kind of where they stood. So I never admitted to my mother before she passed, and we're kind of actually at a point where I have not told my dad. He is the only person I have not told, because not that he would hate me, not that he would, disown me or anything negative. It's just, he's 83, he's very old fashioned, and I think it would just be kind of confusing and burdensome, you know what I mean? It's a lot for him to ponder at this point, and as much as I want to, I don't want to trouble him, because he has, he's still grieving from Mom's recent passing, and, he has a lot of health issues. So maybe down the road, we'll get to that point with him. So, but, I've told the rest of the family, I've told my friends, a vast majority of my coworkers, I haven't told everyone, just kind of slowly making my way around work. I haven't gone and,
slow burn. Yeah.
Exactly.
As needed, as it comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. I joke that I run our company intranet, and I thought, well, I could just post it on there. Why not? I don't care. But it was kind of an interesting point of timing that just at when I was decided to come out, we had a sexual harassment class at work. And so I'm sitting in this meeting as we're clearly discussing sexual harassment, across, all the varieties and ways this can happen. And of course, sexual orientation is a large part of this conversation. It's like, do I get up in the middle of this meeting and just say, hey, everybody? But no, I didn't do that. I thought that'd be a little bit too much. But that did prompt me to, for whatever reason, to start with our HR director as the first person I told at work. So, but it has gone well. Everyone has been very accepting. No one has, said anything negative, has tried to distance themselves from me. And for those that read our Facebook group, you will see I've actually mentioned that it's been incredibly drama-free. It's been like nobody cares. Flat out, I tell people we have a couple-minute conversation, and that's it. No one cares. So welcome to the 21st century of at least the culture I'm surrounded in of complete tolerance, or what I take as tolerance. So,
and this kind of blows my mind because you're in Ohio.
Correct.
And are you near Cincinnati or
I'm in Cincinnati proper? Yes.
And I think that's helpful because I find that big cities are way more gay friendly
metropolitan areas are,
than like the small town I'm from. So
yeah. Well, for those that don't know, Cincinnati is fairly conservative, though things are leaning a little bit more liberal. But, we're the home of such great names as Mitch McConnell, John Boehner, these very prominent politicians. And so they kind of paint the spectrum of what you can get down here. There's a lot of intolerance. There's a lot of ugliness down here. But, the community is growing and whatnot. So I think that's... Now, I'm not native to Cincinnati. I'm actually from up the road in Cleveland, Ohio, and haven't lived there for many a year, many a decade. So I think just being in Cincinnati just kind of, fueled my fear. I just didn't want to come out. I was just afraid for whatever reason, looking back at it now with everything just being easy and having no issues. It's just like, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? But it's like, what would have happened 20 years ago? It was, it's just, you just don't know. I was afraid for whatever illogical reason or logical reason, just, it has been very ugly. I can't remember the actual names of the participants, but, that Supreme Court case, came out of the Cincinnati area, where the couple, we got to marriage legalized. So, from little acorns in Cincinnati. So
it's just always interesting, that dynamic of how fear controls us and just prevents us from doing things. And 20 years ago, I guarantee it probably would have been a bit harder.
Very different experience.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear, especially in Ohio. I'm from Kentucky, and half my family voted for Trump, if not most of my family.
Yeah.
And I only recently even came out to my mom a few years ago, and I did that while I was in Kentucky, while I don't know, there was political stuff going on, and it was just such a weird thing. And you're every I think it was around election season or after. It was when the anti-Muslim, the ban was going on.
Oh yeah.
So it was January of 2017, I think.
One of the first things he tried to do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there in rural Kentucky with this on the news, and everywhere we go, Trump signs, and it's just okay, I guess this is where I'm going to tell my mom. It's an odd thing, and I think that we all struggle with it for various reasons, and especially when we're still getting killed for coming out, and all that wonderful fun stuff. So I'm glad that you were inspired to do this, and that everyone has been receptive. But how have you felt? Because I think I saw that you've struggled a little bit with expectation versus reality of coming out.
It has been very positive. There has definitely been a weight lifted off my shoulders. I just, feel like, obviously I'm not hiding anything anymore. So, any mannerisms I want to make, I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to play the pronoun game anymore. It's just, it's all freeing and easy. But, I guess, not to complain, but I guess I wanted maybe a little drama or just a little bit more, inquisition from my friends, because this deep dark secret that I've been holding back for decades of my life that is just dictated how I have to live and hide every day, and just it's all been easy peasy. No one cares. There hasn't been an in-depth conversation of, well, when did you know, and why have you hidden this from us, and how many boyfriends have you had, and what have you done? It just all been, I don't know, just a little too nonchalant. And,
like almost dismissive, maybe like positive but dismissive.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, I don't want to put a negative spin on it, but it's less like, it really boils down to, okay, you're gay, so what? It's like, and I guess from a certain point of view, it's like, how often do we talk about our sex lives with your friends or coworkers? It's like, it's probably not a topic you really want to go in depth about, even if I kind of want to. So,
but I mean, I kind of understand where you're coming from too, because you've held on to this for so long, and then you finally you let it out into the world, and everybody just kind of shrugs and walks away, and you're like, but my struggle, my pain, everything I went through, was it all for nothing? I kind of get that.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of, well, I think I'm taking us off track here a little bit, but part of the reason I didn't come out, the fear was because of Mom for some reason. And I don't think she would have hated me. I'm sure she would have loved me, and I'm sure she actually said those exact words 20 years ago when she confronted me about it.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't do it. But with her passing, I think that also kind of plays into it's like, well, okay, there's one less thing I have to worry about. So I don't know. I kind of feel a little cowardice about that and not doing something, before we lost her. But just kind of weird. You just got to go when it feels right, and it just felt right.
Yeah.
I jokingly say I'm about to turn 48 here in a few weeks. So it's like, well, maybe I should have saved this for my 50th birthday. So, the big celebration, 5-0. I'm gay.
Well, I mean, never fear, because I do think that next year at our Night of Diversity at STLV, we will also have a coming out party for you and for anyone else that's been inspired, and for just anyone that shows up, because we've all come out at one point or the other. And it's, for some of us, it's been a story like yours, where some people knew and other people had no idea, but were like, hey, that's awesome. Or, okay, sure. And then there are stories that are not so great, where people still struggle once they've come out. But we want to celebrate everyone. So we're excited that you came out now.
Yep. Thank you.
We will make sure that we have an awesome party to celebrate that.
With cake, I hear.
Yes, with cake. We may need multiple cakes.
I almost forgot one delightful footnote to my story here, and how Star Trek helped me come out was I can't remember who, and I should know this person's name, but some wonderful, kind soul in our Facebook group, after I posted this long missive with the picture of Wilson touching my knee, actually forwarded it to Wilson Cruz, and I got direct feedback from him, just saying, thank you. I'm proud to have helped you. This is what we do. This is what it's all about. And I'm just proud to help you at this time and whatever, part he played. So that was just, just put me on cloud 9 for the rest of the day. So it was just very lucky that happened to me.
When you talk about Wilson, you have little heart eyes like the emoji.
You do. True.
Yeah, there's something about Wilson that just makes me smile, kind of brings a little joy to my face.
That's just, I mean, that moment in and of itself is just so incredibly amazing. And that's one of the things that I love about STLB. And I've had multiple moments over the years. But now, I don't know, just having Wilson and Anthony in Star Trek, you know, two men who are just amazing actors and artists to begin with, now being this beautiful, amazing, wonderful, normal couple. I never understood, like, well, and that's a whole other podcast about why some people think that, you know, Star Trek Discovery was just going to be two guys in rainbow clothes running around for the whole 13 episodes.
It wasn't?
I mean, we can make that Star Trek if people want it. Oh man, but their chemistry.
Fan film coming.
Oh my gosh, there may be something out there we need to Google. You know, just having a couple with such amazing chemistry on screen, and then being such amazing people off screen, and getting to have those up and close interactions are just, I completely understand why it helped inspire you, and getting that feedback from him. But yeah, I was 5 seconds away from tweeting it to him when I saw that someone else had already messaged him or whatever. It's just, I don't,
yeah.
It's just.
He promised me a hug next year, and I'm going to.
You're going to cash in on that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Selfish little me.
No, that's not selfish at all. You should totally cash in on that.
Here's another interesting footnote to this, or an ancillary. So as I mentioned early on, you know, I came out, or just was out in Vegas, was open. And the friends I made last year, you know, they were surprised when I would say I'm not out. Maybe I think even Heather, you said that at one point, I just seem confident or out or just whatever, comfortable in my skin in Vegas. And that's very true. One of my friends I made last year, Scott, one thing led to another friendship wise. And we kind of got to the point where we realized that he is a closeted gay male as well. So, just kind of talked and whatever, became friends and continued our discussions and friendship after Vegas. And so he told me when he got back home that I inspired him last year to come out.
Aww.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, that was kind of amazing. And so it took me a year later, but him being out and everything else I said, and the fact that this year he brought his boyfriend with him to Vegas was great inspiration. And I found out that shortly after Vegas that he proposed and they are going to get married.
Oh my God.
So it's like just a very weird and touching circle. I inspired him and he inspired me, and now it's all full circle and everyone's out and happy, and I guess I have to get married next year.
I was going to say, I guess we're going to have a wedding cake too for people.
Unfortunately, Scott has decided not to come back next year after doing Vegas for 5 or 6 years. He's just kind of tuckered out and wants a break.
Yeah, I hear you. That'll never be me.
10 and going strong.
That's it. Yeah, and again, that's why it's so important to tell these stories and make these connections. And I mean, for me, like, I'm not, and much like you, like, I'm not a big part of our community here. I've been to some different events, lots of poly events, poly meetups and stuff. I don't go to Pride because Pride is downtown the same week as Denver Comic-Con. And I went 2-3 years ago, and my cosplay was like super, like rainbow Supergirl, and I carried around a sign that said, "You don't have to be a hero to fight for equality." So I was trying to like represent both, but it's super overwhelming. So to not have that community here as much, aside from like close friends, that's another big reason why STLV I think is so powerful, because you get there and there are so many of us. Whether people realize it or not, when we make those connections, it's just incredibly empowering. It's good to have gay friends, right? It's so very important. And I'm curious, Marty, because you've got like a gay kickball club.
Yes.
So it seems like you're more with the community out in California?
Yeah, well, I'm from Southern California, so we have just a never-ending supply of things to do for LGBTQ plus people out here. Every weekend, I go down to Long Beach, which is 20 minutes from my house, to play kickball in a gay kickball league, varsity gay league. They have leagues that they run all around the country. Actually, this weekend, Labor Day weekend, they are doing a kickball tournament in San Diego. So a bunch of leagues from around the country come and compete
Wow.
in the league there. But they have in Long Beach they have kickball, volleyball, and bowling. So I do volleyball and kickball currently, and I'm like off and on with bowling because that one's a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great. I've met a ton of people. I'm getting really close with my kickball team now, the Sirens. They're all like amazing, awesome people. Like everybody just cares about everybody else. The other day I felt comfortable enough to share like some of my personal vulnerabilities with them, and they like responded with nothing but like love, support, and kindness, which in Southern California you don't find too much of that in the gay
Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
especially like when you get towards LA. It becomes very superficial and who's hotter than one another and all that stuff. So
Mm. I think down the road probably we'll also talk about how like our queer communities are different and we discriminate
yeah,
within our own communities, and it's something that I struggle with personally, and a big part of why I'm not actually involved as much as I have been in the past with our communities in Denver. So that's it's so important that you have that support. It's
Mhm.
awesome. Eric, do you think that you'll be inspired to seek out some community opportunities?
Yeah, I was just thinking that listening to Marty, because not or being in the closet, I've been deep in the closet. I don't do anything with the community, no gay activities, no groups, and really have never even had a really significant boyfriend. It's been so this is all new and new avenues. So it's like, it's time for me to figure out how do I meet gay men and become a bit bigger, better part of the community. Some of these sports clubs, or I don't know. I'm kind of clueless. It's like, do I go to the gay bars? Do I, join P Flag? It's like, what do I do? How do I, how do I proceed? So it's all a big question mark of
just
what.
depends on what kind of activities you want to do, really.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. And I think I'm not on meetup.com anymore, but like between Meetup and then different social media sites, I know like there are groups. I think that's where some of our poly and some of our LGBTQ stuff is. Um, and that's how I found some of those events. And then just like Facebook and um, when I find a friend, like a local friend, I try to add them. And then I find that like through my friends, they're going to different events and stuff. And then of course, if you can make it to Pride, there's usually
Yeah.
various representation there to connect you with other people.
Yeah.
But it's got to be a little overwhelming and again a little scary to be at this point in your life where you have the opportunity to truly live your life for you
Mm-hmm.
and be happy and find a boyfriend, even if I'm even like, oh gosh, it's
It is overwhelming. I joke now. It's like, okay, I need to find a boyfriend in time for the company holiday party. Like, okay, I got 3 months here. Come on, you can do it.
you can do it. You can do it.
Yep.
It's I think it's important to remember that people come out at all ages.
Mm-hmm.
Children come out. I don't even want to talk about children. Something very bad just happened to a child that came out, and I
Right.
don't want to go there. Which we'll have to talk about those things at some point, but let's be happy. People come out at all points in their lives, and even over time, I say our sexuality may or may not change. Our definition of ourselves and how we understand ourselves. Like for me personally, I've I've evolved over time, and the more that I learn from others, like I never understood what being pansexual was. I just thought I was bisexual. And then I learned about pansexual and I was like, oh, well, then no, that's what I am. And so it's important to remind people that we come out at all times in our lives when it feels right, like you did, Eric. And it's important to recognize that and to provide, support for everyone. So I think that you'll do great. I think, look for some meetup groups. And again, you're going to go and it's going to be your people. It may not be your STLV tribe, but there's still going to be people that you have stuff in common with, that have experienced what you've experienced in life to some extent. So
and it's nice to be a member of different communities too.
mm-hmm.
I love that I have like my STLV tribe, and I love that I have like my Disney tribe, and I love that I have like my kickball tribe,
Yeah.
and of course my tricorder tribe.
Yeah. I just have to take my time. It took me many decades to get here, and it's not going to happen overnight. So just go slow and steady. I think I mentioned to Heather in a offline chat. It's like, oh, I bumped into someone that appeared to be a gay Trekkie in Cincinnati, and it's like there's like a dearth of Trekkies, and let alone a gay Trekkie in Cincinnati. I was over cloud nine. It's like I must talk to this person. Of course, it hasn't gone anywhere yet, so that's disappointing.
Well, that's just life.
Yep, exactly. You win some, you lose some.
But yeah, Marty made a great point too. Like even within, like I just started longsword fencing in the last couple of months, and I don't actually know if there are any queer people in our fencing club yet, but I know that within the greater, like the social media community, there are. And that's going to be another fun thing, because apparently there's been some pushback, as there always is, but we will fight it. But yes, apparently I did meet one gay fencer in Las Vegas because Combat Con was going on the same time as STLB, and I went over there. So yeah, you'll find more and more people as you find different communities. And so
yep. Exactly. And just slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
Me too.
Yay. I don't know. As I've gotten older and really come to understand who I am as a person, and not just my orientation, but like the overall definition. And after having gone through some trauma stuff this year and having to confront fear when you never wanted to, but you were just kind of thrown into it, and then you come out the other side and you're fine. Like spending a long time being in the closet, being so afraid, and then coming out on the other side feeling fine. It's hard not to want to try to support and help other people do the same thing so that they can finally truly live their lives, for themselves and as themselves. And I know STLV for me has certainly helped that. I am my most authentic self at STLV. And it sounds like that catches on pretty quickly, that everyone tends to feel that way once they get there. So I think that your story is a wonderful example of that.
Thank you. This kind of makes me wonder. It's like, I know I'm not alone. It's like, how many people have this same story? It'd be really interesting if there would be a way to find out.
Well, yeah, they can email us, they can tweet us, they can let us know and come on the show and tell their stories.
We want to know.
Yes, no, we definitely want to know. And I guess we can also mention our Facebook group here on our way out in a bit. But I don't know. Do we have anything else to add, or?
I was just going to ask if you ever had any moments watching Star Trek where there was like an episode that aired or a moment in Star Trek where you just were like, oh, I really should go for it now. I really should try to be myself or to come out, or.
I'm thinking here and nothing is coming to mind. Not really. I just buried so deep in the closet for whatever reasons, for whatever fear, just the idea of coming out really was never that strong until I came back from Vegas this year. It just kind of just whammy. It's like, just do it. Go with this. Don't hide from it. Take this moment. Take this opportunity. So I don't know. I guess, but just probably, like I said, the back of my brain with these wonderful new characters on the show just probably always was playing in the back of my head. So
yeah, having that representation is important, and that's something that I've had to explain.
And Eric is proof that it's important, because I don't think if he hadn't had that moment with Wilson Cruz at STLV with the hard eyes,
If he didn't touch my knee, would I be here right now?
Yeah, who knows?
He has the magic touch.
So it was like trying to explain that, and even if having that representation of a gay couple in Star Trek wasn't something, like it was something in the back, like something that was kind of simmering, and maybe leading you towards something. It's interesting how many people don't understand that it's just like we've never had this. Like, sure, Star Trek has played with LGBTQ culture. But it's been explained away, and over the course of this podcast, like we will talk about when this has happened and with various people, because regardless of how something may have been washed away by heterosexuality, it still made an impact, and people still saw representation or felt representation, or at least had a positive experience watching episodes where they saw themselves. But it just, I don't know, it was really not confronting. I can't think of the right word, but having to explain that, no, it's just that we've never had this representation. And so it's not like this is a groundbreaking moment for media. Like if there's gay people, there are lots of LGBTQ people on TV, but in Star Trek we haven't had this. And now we have these actors coming to conventions and interacting with us, and even that small interaction like lit a fire. and here you are. So it's something that I hope that we'll get to talk about a lot, because I do think that it's impactful, and totally get where you may not have been inspired by other parts of Star Trek. I think that's a question we'll wind up asking a lot of people.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So since this is the theme of this episode is coming out for the show, for myself, I don't know if you guys want to talk about your coming out at all, if you had good experiences, bad, anything you want to share, any way Star Trek may have played a role in that.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Marty, or do you want me to go?
My coming out experience was not the most pleasant. I, like you, Eric, was in the closet for many, many years, but for different reasons. I grew up in a religious family, an American Baptist family, in Southern California, but it was always nailed into my brain growing up that there were three things that my parents would not tolerate. And the top two things were always murdering somebody and homosexuality, and the third one was doing drugs. Those were the three things that, like, if we were any of those three things, then we were on the curb. So I think looking back on it, I kind of knew I always was, but like by junior high, I think it really clicked. And so I just tried to like shove it away, and like doing that made me a very awkward person throughout high school. I was just kind of like the lonely kid, because I didn't feel like I could make real connections with people because I wasn't being who I was. So eventually, when I was 20 years old, I decided that I had had enough, and I needed to be I needed to be myself. I couldn't hide it away anymore if I was going to survive in the world. So I wrote a note on my mom's windshield that told her that I liked boys and not girls. And I ran off to work because I knew she would not follow me to work. when I got off work, I walked home as slow as I could and finally got there. She came into my room, um, held the note in her hand and said, "Well, I can't have any gay stuff under my roof." And that was it. I was out of the house. So from that point on, when I was 20, I was on my own, no family support. Since then, she's tried to reconnect, but I think because there has been such a drift in our relationship since then that it's not like there's no getting back to the relationship we had growing up. So I've kind of, as Oprah says, divorced my family, and I'm okay with that. I've made wonderful connections with other people who do love me and who do support me, and I treasure those connections more than I do the connections that I had with my family. They become my new family, basically.
You had to be true to yourself.
Yeah,
So you did the right thing. You're better off for it. You're surrounding yourself with people that truly love you.
exactly. Yeah.
Like us.
Yes, exactly.
It's it's a hard decision. I had to make that decision with my biological father, not related to my sexuality. He was an alcoholic and he left before I was born. But that's a whole other thing. But I know how difficult of a decision that can be. And I didn't really have, like, I was forced to see him a lot through my childhood. And so I didn't have even like a close relationship with him, like I imagine you may have with your mom growing up.
Mhm. Yeah, it was really tough because a few years earlier, I was going through chemotherapy treatments for cancer, and she was always by my side, taking care of me, like making sure that I had everything I needed to like get through that hard year. And then a few years later, when I shared something about my personal life with her, she just kicked me to the curb. Like, I think that's probably what hurt the most about that
Yeah.
situation is
Yeah.
just kind of a sudden reversal just because I was gay.
Yeah.
That's not a thing that, you can't, oh yeah, you can bounce back from that. No, like even an apology is not sufficient. That at the end of the day, I think we have to look at ourselves and say, does this hurt me more than it helps me? And do I want this? And you do not have to do things that you don't want to do in life, regardless of what people tell you. And like you've said, you've been able to find family and people that accept you for being you and love you. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Yeah, and Star Trek has been a huge part of finding those people. So
Yeah. Isn't that funny? It's like for all the non-queerness in Star Trek,
I know.
it has brought so many of us together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they have this view of the world that's just, I think, something that
inclusive.
all of us crave. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really that inclusivity, and sadly, not all Star Trek fans believe in that, which is always a mind bender. But I find that for the most part, most Trek groups, and especially at STLV, like I said, we're there and we are family. And I felt like our LGBTQ family this year just grew, and I made so many more connections. And it's just seeing that and hoping that it happens every year is incredibly inspiring. It's like I try to remind myself in our current political situation, and the very bad things that are happening to our community and setting us back, that evolution is slow. And I think that we are headed in the right direction. I think it's just going to be slow to get there. But even just like having Eric come out at this time in his life is a proof that this is progress, right?
Right. It's interesting, Marty. I guess I didn't think that far back. The religious upbringing. I mean, I was raised Catholic myself, so it's like,
Yeah.
how much did that play into that? And the good Catholic priest and being an altar boy and all that stuff. So it's just one of those things you'll never figure out. The dichotomy of religion of love everyone except the gays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know there are nowadays religions out there that are even Catholicism, right? I think the Pope is accepting of gays.
True.
You know, I mentioned
they're getting around there.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town too, and I didn't know anything but, oh, you know, you're going to grow up and get married to a man. That's all. No words about any kind of queerness, homosexuality, bisexuality, nothing. And so I didn't really understand why I liked girls, or even like know to how to process that or acknowledge it, or that it was a thing. And it took me a very long time. And then, so I'm 37, so I went to high school in the 90s, I think like 95 to 99. And during that time, there was a lot more. There was some gay representation on TV. Whether or not it was the best types of representation, we won't go there. But I think I started trying to understand myself that way, and realizing, okay, this is a thing and I can be this way and it's fine. But I never talked to my mom about it or anything. I dated boys. I had very close relationships with some of my girlfriends that were quasi-romantic, but I didn't really know what to do. And then throughout adulthood, wound up again having relationships with women, but mostly they were just sexual, nothing ever romantic, because I just never knew what to do, and I never was part of a community or had friends that were like me. And so I had a hard long road of trying to understand who I was in that way. And it's really taken time. I mean, I'm 37, and probably in the last 10 years, so I've never been like closeted to my friends, but definitely to my family. And as I started to learn, oh, I'm pansexual, not just bisexual, I'm attracted to people of all orientations, all gender identities, not just women. And then, oh, polyamory, what's that? That took a long time to understand that I'm also a polyamorous person. And despite that, like right now, I am in a monogamous relationship with a man. And so I struggle a lot with, am I queer enough? People see me as an ally. They don't identify that I'm a queer person. And so it's something that's very, very difficult for me. But going to STLV and having some local friends who were like me did inspire me to come out to my mom, like I said, a couple years ago when we were in Kentucky. And I didn't even try to explain what pansexual was to her. That I felt was probably a bit much. So I just said, Mom, like, I want you to know, if you haven't figured it out yet, because I'm very open about it on social media. I like women, and I like all kinds of people, and not platonically, romantically, and I like to have sex with them. And she just kind of sat there and smiled and shook her head and said, okay. And I was like, do you want to ask me any questions? And she said, no. And I said, well, if you want to tell Daddy, you can. And she shook her head and said no. And that was difficult for me to understand, because now here my dad, like Eric's, is also in his 80s. He's healthy, but he's old. And he grew up in Georgia and has been a devout Republican up until I think Obama came around. But despite being a conservative person, that doesn't necessarily mean that you hate gay people. And so I was just completely shocked that my mom did not feel comfortable telling my dad. And I was like, look, he's my friend on Facebook. Like, he's going to figure this stuff out at some point. When I talk about myself on social media, I talk about myself as a queer person, depending on what mood I'm in. Sometimes I don't like to post political stuff because I get into fights. I get very defensive for reasons, I'm tired of the way that the queer community is treated. And I know that being angry about it is not always the way to help educate people. But it happens. And that's why sometimes I'm kind of radio silent for a while. And other times I'm like, here's what's happening to our people. And I make sure to talk about myself in a way that people know who I am. I'm not as open about polyamory because polyamory is still not understood well. And I'm sure we'll talk about that with someone down the road and it can help enlighten as to the reality of polyamory. But yeah, I don't think my mother has told anyone else in my family, and I don't care. People that are friends on Facebook probably already know, or they'll figure it out eventually. I'm not super close with a lot of my family anymore. Like, my Star Trek family is my family. It really is. Star Trek community saved my life in this past year, got me out of an abusive situation where I may not be alive. So those were the people that helped me in my time of need. And to me, that's who family is. Yep. And I'm super happy to have that family and for you guys to be part of that family.
I think it's interesting how you mentioned Facebook a couple of times. I think that's like the last frontier, last frontier. But I haven't announced myself, and I know it's coming because there's still a couple of people I haven't told personally, and I want to do that. But I still feel a need for a I'm gay post on Facebook just to cover all my bases of everyone I missed.
Just make sure you bring lots of glitter when you do it.
Absolutely. I have changed whatever. I am interested in men now. So there's that little footnote. So I don't think that gets a status update so anyone can see that.
Not anymore.
No.
It should. It should, man. If it's going to be like, I'm in a relationship with my cat, which I don't think it updates it for that, but no, it should. And you know what? You can even go like, okay, not that you need to take this advice
Facebook
because
has an option for a life event, and you can create a life event.
Maybe that's what I'll do. Good idea.
Team out.
That's what I was going to say is that number one, the story that you told in our Facebook group was wonderful. And so I share that because it's already there.
Copy paste, share that post even.
With
Copy
picture.
paste.
Yeah.
He's touching my knee.
Do a life event and say, it's your coming out and let everyone know. And if anybody angry faces you, block them and delete
Exactly.
them.
Oh yeah.
Nobody will, but still.
No. You never know, but I have no problem unfriending people. I've done it for less. So,
yeah. I don't know.
Another thing I'm kind of wondering in the back of my mind here, and I'm sure someone's researching it or looking into it, or maybe you guys know, but it's just like, the queer community, I at times, or especially now as I come out, I just don't feel like we're such a minority. It just feels like we are a really big community and more people are queer than we realize. A lot of people are hiding or don't share it openly, but I think we're everywhere and really, really, just more abundant than the world knows. Just one, and a lot of coming out stories yet.
But
to
a
be
lot of the world is ignorant and they like to live in their little bubbles, and anything outside their bubble they don't want to know about.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, and so many people that are just oppressed and then repressed and suppressed because of fear, and very real fear. I mean, go to another country and you come out and you're dead. So I think that's a really good subject for another podcast because, I've studied a lot about human sexuality from the very beginning in our evolution of sexuality. And I tend to believe that, yes, people are much more flexible than they let on. And so many people are not comfortable with it. There are certainly people that are 110% straight, and that is absolutely fine. Just as, all the definitions of queerness are fine. It really is, we say a rainbow, but it's like a kaleidoscope to me, because there's there's so many ways to identify and express yourself. And I really think that a lot of people evolve as they connect with themselves more and connect with the community and learn, just like I have. So I'm glad that we're living in an age, and again, this is proof of evolution, that so many of us are able to come out. It's truly a wonderful thing, and I think it's a great way to show that, yeah, there are a lot more of us than you think. And that's why doing events like having a simple group photo or having Night of Diversity or some other kind of party at these, large gatherings and small gatherings is important. It's our own little mini pride type of thing, to just say, we're here and we're queer. The more that we can tell our stories and show that we're just regular people like everyone else, the more that others will become comfortable with that. At least I hope.
Yeah. Star Trek changed me. Just took a small group of people, just showing simple love and affection and appreciation, friendship, whatever you want to call it, and just, got me to undo decades of fear. And now as I'm going to work on living my best life.
I'm glad that the Star Trek community showed you that you're worthy of love and being who you are.
Well, Eric,
on that sappy note.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say before we close up shop?
Well, I'm tickled pink that you invited me here on the inaugural broadcast, and appreciate the opportunity to share my my story. And I hope for whatever it is, it makes someone smile or inspires someone, or not even anything that grandiose. Just just does someone some good in some way, even if it's just puts a smile on their face.
I'll just be happy if someone listens.
Tell all your friends, tell your neighbors.
I think we'll have listeners. We've had had pretty good following, at least on Twitter, and people that are excited. And so I'm excited. I think this is a great start. And, just because this is our coming out episode and coming out stories doesn't mean that has to end. Like, if you want to come on and just tell your coming out story, we're fine with that. Yeah. It's time to have this podcast, and it's time to tell our stories. And I know I've said that 1,000 times, but it's important.
It's very important. And to piggyback off what you just said, I mean, this is a podcast for you, the listener. So please make sure you send us your feedback. We want to hear from you. We want your ideas. We want your stories. We want all of it. In case you missed it, you can reach us on Twitter at QueerTrekPod. You can reach us online at QueerTrek.thetricordertransmissions.com or by email at QueerTrek@thetricordertransmissions.com. Heather, where can people find you if they want to continue the conversation?
On Twitter, I am LLA Posper, which is LLAPAWSPER. And if you're interested in learning about Star Trek Las Vegas, you can find me in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook. I'm one of the admins, and we would love to have you there. Tell us that you found us via QueerTrek, please.
And Eric, where can people find you online if they'd like to continue the conversation?
Sure. I hide a little bit more on social media. You can only find me on Facebook. My personal page is just my name, Eric Profancik. I am the co-admin of the Star Trek Las Vegas USS Rio group, and I'm also co-admin with Heather of the STLV LGBTQPIA+ Community and Allies Facebook group that I'm now staring and reading so I don't miss any letters.
It's a lot of letters, and that's another discussion I think I'd like to have down the road.
Because when I was in college, it was just LGB.
Yeah, it's grown, and while I like to think that queer encompasses everyone, not everyone believes that. And so when I made the group, I made it as inclusive as possible. But we would love for everyone to come join us there.
Please do.
Please. So Marty, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Time Travel Marty. I can also be found on Facebook through the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group. The show, once again, on Twitter is QueerTrek Pod. And if you'd like to donate to our Patreon fund, you can do so at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And if you enjoyed the episode, please share it with your friends. Go to iTunes, leave us a star rating and review, and share your stories with us. This podcast is here for you.
Yes.
We want to know.
I'm not just a guest. I'm also a patron. Supporting Transmissions. So thank you, Heather. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, QueerTrek, for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here tonight.
It was a pleasure having you here, Eric.
And hey, congratulations on getting to be you.
Thank you very much.
All right. With that, I think we will close it out. We don't have a closing salutation yet, but I'm sure we'll find one.
If you have ideas, send them in, because all we could come up with was set phasers to stunning, which is pretty overused and not quite the way to sign out a show. And we were coming up with just basic things like, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. So if you've got a super awesome tagline to end our show, please let us know and we will give you credit.
Oh, we should do the cheese right now, live long and be fabulous.
Oh,
I thought about, I was like, live long and be queer. But that way it doesn't roll off the tongue.
No.
Right?
That is true. It doesn't have to roll off the tongue. It just has to be memorable.
Well, we'll work on it.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We've got a lifetime of episodes to figure it out.
By episode 300, we'll have it down. I'm sure.
47 is our goal.
Easily.
So I guess for now, we'll just say live long and prosper, and we'll see you again soon.
IDIC LLAP.